Evet, canlıdayız, we're live. Sevgili ETİD üyeleri, E-Ticaret çalışanları, E-Ticaret satıcıları, Elektronik Ticaret İşletmeciler Derneği'nin bir Masters Talks webinarına hoş geldiniz demek istiyorum. Ben Emre Ekmekçi, ETİD Yönetim Kurulu Başkanıyım. Bu akşam önemli gündemde önemli bir konudan bahsedeceğiz. Özellikle Türkiye'de Ticaret Bakanlığımızın E-İhracata yönelik vereceği 2023 Ocak'tan itibaren başlayacak olan desteklerle beraber E-İhracat çok daha önemli bir gündem konusu olacak hayatımızda E-Ticaret için. Tabii ki destekler çok güzel, çok kapsamlı ama satıcılar olarak da bizlerin üzerine düşen bazı gereklilikler olabiliyor. Bunlardan bir tanesi de belirli durumlarda değişik ülkelerde özellikle Avrupa Birliği'nde hepimizin bildiği gibi satıcı olarak KDV işte VAT kaydı konusu. Bugün bu akşam bunu gündeme alacağız. Konuklarım çok değerli, hem çözüm anlamında hem de bu konuda pratikte de iş yapmış olan bir firmadan, Ruby Brands'den konuklarımız var. İzninizle ben İngilizce dönmek istiyorum çünkü konuklarımız yabancı ve sunumlarımız da İngilizce olacak. So Daniel and Emilio, I'll turn into English now. I just spoke about the importance of cross-border commerce for the Turkish sellers. So with that said in mind, I want to introduce our guests. Today we have two companies, one a solution company and another one is a case in point of e-exporter from Turkey. So I'd like to welcome our friends from CountX, Daniel and Emilio, and we are very excited to hear about the cross-border VAT solutions, especially with I think Germany has been a big concern for a lot of sellers on VAT registration. We even have some stories of sellers not even wanting to go to Germany for vacation because they're concerned about some of the impact of it at the border. And I'd also like to welcome my dear friend and colleague Berin Susamış from Ruby Brands, the CFO of Ruby Brands, who is an e-commerce aggregator in Turkey and in the region, the first in Turkey, which I also have to disclose. I'm also a co-founder and chairperson at Ruby Brands, so I'm very much biased for their success. But what we wanted to do today is share our practices, share what is happening at Ruby Brands, and also with our friends at CountX about how sellers can properly scale their businesses from a legality perspective, specifically in the EU region. And Turkish government has a lot of support programs, new support programs related to e-exports. But what is really important is, in order for these to be scalable, proper registration has to be done. So with that in mind, without letting our audiences wait much longer, I want to give the floor to the CountX team and listen to your solution and your take on how the Turkish sellers should behave in these regions, and what should they be looking, what should they be concerned about, what should they be not concerned about anymore, because there are now solutions to those. So with that, I give the floor to you, Emilia and Dani.
Okay, so Emma, Baron, it's great to be with you. So first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation. We are really happy to present today together with you and answer any questions that might arise. I will probably kick it off now to give you some more background about who we are and what we do, and then I will hand over to Daniel, who will explain a bit more in how Turkish sellers actually can tap the market in Europe, in the EU, and also explain that a bit, how we're doing that and how we're supporting Ruby brands. Maybe as a way of background, so Emma, we still love to welcome anyone from Turkey in Europe and in Germany in particular. We are a company actually based in Berlin, and we have a large community here. We are a software company that was founded about 2.5 years ago now, and we have multiple hundreds of sellers whom we're supporting with VAT automation. And how that all came about was that we wanted to solve a really big problem in the e-commerce space, and we identified VAT being a real showstopper for some companies to sell cross-border. While there are problems of fulfillment and similar, these being resolved by a lot of companies, VAT often is something which we would call an unsexy problem, that not many people actually wanted to focus on. So we started writing software in that space, and we're trying to how we call it to allow for frictionless cross-border commerce. So we actually want that there are no borders felt by our clients, in particular when it comes to VAT, and this is what we're putting our efforts against. So as I said, we started about 2.5 years ago, and we have multiple hundreds of sellers whom we're supporting, and we noticed that when somebody starts to sell cross-border, that usually they encounter the problem that their VAT advisor hardly can advise on another jurisdiction. So when you see, for instance, some tax advisors are usually trained in their country, so there's experts on legal and VAT matters in any such jurisdiction. However, they hardly can advise on other countries, and this is what cross-border commerce is all about. And therefore, a lot of VAT advisors had the problem that they can't consult on other countries, and a lot of sellers we identified have then been calling VAT advisors in other countries, or their VAT advisors started calling them, and we started trying to automate that. An additional problem that we saw with a number of sellers is that they don't speak the language. So when you sell, for instance, in Europe, you have multiple languages in Spain and Italy and France and Germany. All these kind of countries have different languages, and while you might talk 1 or 2 or 3 languages, you hardly can talk all of these. And this is something, a barrier that hold off a lot of sellers too. And this is what we also wanted to solve for. When you think about VAT and VAT compliance, it's often about fulfillment and the invoicing that has to match. And this is kind of something that we really try to get our head around in writing software for that, so that we could match the invoicing against the fulfillment in order to have a data nucleus that you can then use for local filings in any such jurisdiction. And this is what we've been writing our software for. So basically, you can understand us as a company that basically focuses on two major themes. One is how we call it value capture. So we're trying to automate any process possible. So whether that being onboarding or kind of the monthly or quarterly filing, depending on what your obligations are. And the other one is creating value for our customers in having a portal that allows you to monitor exactly where your obligations are, where you have to file, where you haven't filed, and where you actually have to pay. And
okay,
this is
so can I highlight something here then?
Yeah.
For the audience. This is not just purely let's get you a VAT registration in these companies advisory service, right? There are many of those, I guess. This is more of making sure that our invoices and our delivery notes and all of it, our reporting is properly done for VAT purposes, right? So it's not a one-time. Let's just get you a number and here's your number, and then thank you, you're now VAT registered. Your accounting department can do the rest type of a service.
So thanks a lot for mentioning that, Emre. I think you're spot on. What we are kind of solving with the technical architecture is whenever you are selling to a specific country in a B2C scenario, you are obliged to register and file. And what we do on the one hand is registration, but on the other hand, we also take care of the continuous filing. So we have a network of VAT advisors across Europe that basically can support you with data coming out of our system for continuous filing. So when you start in a new jurisdiction in Europe, then this creates obligations, and these obligations have to be met not only once, as you mentioned, but on a continuous basis, and that is what you can use Connex for. And on top of that, we also provide services. So whenever you have particular questions about VAT, we're supporting on that as well. And last but not least, data needs to be fed to different systems. So invoicing being one, ERP systems being another one, and also marketplaces where we usually tap the information from. And we then can basically populate these for submissions to local VAT authorities.
And this marketplace sales is of very much a big interest for the Turkish sellers, I must say, and especially with this new legislation that came up about the support, because Turkish government now has different support programs for sellers to sell on marketplaces through fulfillment services. So like Amazon FBA. So it doesn't have to be an individual cross-border sale from Turkey directly to the consumer. Turkish sellers can ship to FBA, fulfillment centers, and then sell through that, and the government then report to that, but that they are still required to file for VAT and all that. And so my understanding is you have integrations with the likes of Amazon and other marketplaces to make the reporting of VAT much easier, right?
Yes, so thanks for mentioning that too. The problem, there's a benefit of marketplaces very much, and also fulfillment services, but you have to keep in mind that fulfillment, as you mentioned it creates obligations. So whenever you basically, for instance, say, I'm selling via a specific warehouse, so I use fulfillment services in a specific jurisdiction, that creates an obligation. So often sellers just switch on services for fulfillment, for instance, in a specific jurisdiction, but they haven't made sure that that they actually create an obligation for VAT, and this is exactly where we're stepping in. So we are a company that that taps the data in an automated fashion, and then we can create data sets that basically are used for filing for VAT in any such jurisdiction where you have obligations. This is exactly what we do, and we consider us as being a company that is routing data, but making sure that the data gets to the intended intended recipient, so to speak.
Great. So I will let you continue your presentation, please.
Yeah. So may I hand over to Daniel to tap further a bit on our services and the specific Ruby case.
Hey Emilio, thanks a lot, and thanks a lot, Emre, to pointing a light on this important thing of VAT obligations cross-border when you want to enter the European Union. Let me start. Maybe I'm not sure you see. Let me start maybe first of all with the main problem we are having right now. What we as an online retailer want to have is somehow customer all over the world, especially now in the European Union. And it's very, very easy to be able to have a decentralization via FBA program, Zalando fulfillment, whatever. It's easier to have customers all over the world, for example, within the European Union. The hard part about it is that the bureaucracy around it, it's kind of blocking you from doing it legally right to fulfill the obligations you need to fulfill. So yeah, there's a big gap between the easy possibility of enabling the cross-border selling in regards of the legal side to fulfill it right. And what we are going to talk about is what you need to do if you want to enter with your sales into the European Union to act in the end properly regarding the obligations you are having. Because in the end, you need to just have a knowledge about what you're doing physically, what kind of documents you need to provide, and in the end, who is helping you to have these obligations covered. As Emilio already mentioned, in the end, we are somehow a single point of contact. Every obligation you are having within the European Union is fulfilled via our service. But still, you have the obligation as an online retailer and as a company to fulfill it properly. So we can just help you if you know about the obligations you are having, and then in the end we can help you fulfill it right. So in the end, it starts with this main problem that there's a gap by easy enablement, but the hard part of the obligations you're having. And in the end, you need to know about three things. The first thing you need to know about is pretty easy. You need to know about the physical transactions you are having. You need to know where your goods are stored, where your goods are moved to. Is it a B2B sale? Is it a B2C sale? Is it an inter-community sale from warehouse to warehouse? Is it going from Turkey to a customer within the European Union? Is it stored in Germany and it's going to a German customer? So it's within the European Union. You just need to know what transactions take place and how the movements of goods are. Second thing you need to know, what is the legal obligation you are having with these transactions. So you need to know when it's cross-border selling, what you need to do on the legal side. When it's in a warehouse within the European Union, you need to know what to do on the legal side. So you need to know the movements, you need to know what to do on the legal side with the movements. And the third part you need to know about is when you know about these two things, you need to know the documentation, to have the right documentation regarding invoicing, regarding documents for cross-border, inter-community sales, and so on. That in the end, because you can sell wherever you want, in the end, every local tax authority wants to have a documentation about what you are doing, and they, in the end, they want to have money for it. And so you need to pay your VAT in every country. In every country, you have a customer. Nevertheless, if it is somehow B2C, nevertheless, how the goods are moving. When your customer sits in the European Union wants to know what you are doing. You need to file it, and you need to pay VAT in the end. And this is something we enable for you on a legal side. Emilia already mentioned lots of barriers you are having in regards of that. First of all, somehow is language. And a second big part is the easy and the common it is to enable cross-border selling. The e-commerce is developing fast, but it's developing somehow on the same page. The legal authorities in the different countries are very diverse. So you have different jurisdiction in Germany than in France, than in Spain. So it's developing much slower. Like Emery, as you already mentioned, if you don't want to enter somehow as a visitor Germany, because somehow the local authorities like pointing out somehow of a risk. So therefore it's easy to sell again, but somehow you have a bad feeling about how am I able to fulfill it on the legal side. And it's not just like one thing you need to do. In the end, European Union has somehow 26, 27 countries. Each of them need to be treated in a different way. So that needs to be covered somehow. And in the end, it's about data process.
If I may step in here and just, Emre and Baran, we can tell lots of stories from every such jurisdiction where special requirements are different, whether that being Germany or being Italy, where we've kind of encountered that kind of the way how you have to file data is very different. And this creates an enormous complexity for individual sellers to just understand. It's hardly impossible for one to basically work through all, in particular when these sellers don't have big tax offices with 5 employees, but rather are trying to do it on their own. And that's where kind of automation plays a big role and gives a huge potential to resolve.
Exactly. And again, it's very easy to enable it. And it's a fast moving world, this e-commerce with decentralization. But tax authorities, local authorities are moving very, very slow. But you need to bring it together and to combine the decentralization and complexity of e-commerce, or easiness of e-commerce with the complexity of the local jurisdictions. And
as a seller on a marketplace, or even on my direct to consumer e-commerce, my website or in Instagram, wherever I'm selling from, I usually do not have the luxury of choosing where the customer comes from, right? So for one order, it could be from Italy, another one could be from the Netherlands, another one from Poland, which makes me automatically liable for VAT in those countries because someone from that country happened to like my product. Unless I say I'm not selling to you at checkout, right? Unless I specifically restrict it, which no one does. And if you're selling on a marketplace, you don't have that luxury anyhow. So I guess EU has, there is no single. So my understanding is there is no single EU VAT policy or process. It's different for every single country, unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
well,
not
fortunately
just for
you have a business. Unfortunately for sellers that they have to deal with this.
Yeah, but it's good you're pointing it out, Emma, because unfortunately it's not just the way that there are different countries with different jurisdiction, like different companies in a different way they're acting are treated different as well. So maybe we are having to, maybe we can talk about different questions in the end or in the meanwhile. Or even I, when asked some of my team a question, it always, or usually the answer begins with, it depends. Because there's not one way to describe how you need to act. It is different circumstances need to be considered here. what kind of goods you are selling. Is it B2B or B2C? Where is your customer based? Where is your warehouse based? Are you selling goods from outside the EU into the EU? Is it more than 150 euros or less? So there are different angles. You need to have a view on the circumstances, and therefore you create your own case, and then you are able to act the right way. So the complexity in the end needs to be break down to these circumstances. And as you mentioned, you have no idea where your customer in the end is based. But that somehow leads to the first thing you need to know, how your transactions physically take place. So is there someone in, I don't know, France who is selling something from you on Instagram? Then you need to know what obligations I am having. You need to know how the document I need to prepare. In the end, the invoice needs to be written. And if I don't want it, somehow it's not easy. I just need to block these kind of transactions. But in the end, you block your own growth. And that's what we don't want to. You mentioned already the FBA program from Amazon, and this is somehow the best example for decentralization and in the end having no impact about how your transactions take place. Amazon, the biggest goal of Amazon is being as fast as possible with as many products as possible to your customers, same day delivery if possible. And therefore, Amazon is taking responsibility how your goods are moving, and you handing over the responsibility to Amazon, who are handling your goods. And therefore, you need just to know what Amazon is doing, and in the end, take care of the obligations. So it's knowledge about your transactions and what is coming after this is very important. And yeah, we are covering it, but I will come to that later on. So we prepared some cases as an example somehow, like in the end, how to get started to being able to sell to European Union customers. In the end, of course, it's possible from outside of the European Union, for example, from Turkey, to sell directly from a warehouse to Turkey to a customer in Germany, for example. There are different possibilities. You can handle your obligations now. It depends on how high the cost of the sale is. If it's above 150 euros and you sell goods from Turkey to Germany, you need to register locally within Germany and file and pay your VAT within Germany. So you can handle it, but you need to have a local registration within Germany. Second possibility is when your goods are costs are lower than 150 euro, you could use the IOSS system. The IOSS system is somehow combining your VAT obligations from outside the European Union with into the European Union. So you can sell from, for example, Turkey to Germany, France, Spain, Italy, wherever you want to, and there's one authority you pay all the taxes and all the VAT obligations to, and then they fulfill it from that main point to every single country. So again, you can see here there's a physical transaction from Turkey into the European Union, but again, it depends how high the costs are. Is it a B2C sale? Is it a B2B sale? You need to know about your transaction. You need to know about the obligations coming with your transactions. And therefore, you need to know what documents I can provide or prepare to being able to file within the European Union and in the end, pay VAT to the European Union. So this is somehow an easy case where you can start with, because you have the possibility to maybe have no local restrictions. Different possibility Baron you and Europe brands are using, for example, is you reorder your fulfillment inside the European Union. So the goods are moving within European Union. Possible, for example, via the Amazon FBA program. So you store your goods in Germany. So you sell your goods from Germany to a customer within Germany. You need to know is, as you sell goods from a country, within the European Union to a customer, you are at that moment already obliged to register your VAT ID within that country. So first sale you have within that country, you need to file it and pay VAT within that country via your local VAT ID you have been registered for. Now again, here are different circumstances how to handle it. When you are not part of the European Union as an online retailer, you need to have a fiscal representation within the European Union. It comes with more obligations, comes with more costs, and in the end, it comes with a need of more detailed documentation you need to provide. And again, it's different handling all regarding countries. In Germany, you don't need it. In France, again, you are needing it. So you cannot describe one case. You need to have, again, an eye on what am I doing, how my company is, where is it based, how is it somehow defined, and then you can act legally correct. So when you are a Turkish-based online retailer, you want to sell in Germany and store your goods in Germany, you need to have a local VAT ID without a fiscal representation. When you want to do it in France, you need to have a local VAT ID with fiscal representation. So different circumstances, but in the end, same e-commerce. You want to sell goods within the European Union. So therefore, there are somehow different workarounds you can use to make it easier. It comes, for example, by creating an entity, for example, in UK. Estonia is somehow very a good point to found a business from where you can act. So your company is based within the European Union. It takes away the problem that you have some obligations regarding fiscal represents and some more documentation and obligation needs. This is somehow a way you can move around some obligations you are having. So this is how you possibly can get started under different circumstances. So outside of the European Union, within the European Union, store goods within the European Union, having cross-border sales within the European Union. So different circumstances. Maybe important to point out is that a local obligation for VAT ID you just have in a country you store your goods in, but you still can sell to a country where you have no warehouse. For example, Germany, Austria, same language. It's a good example for that circumstances. So when you sell from Germany to Austria, you have no warehouse in Austria, so you can think about it. There's no VAT obligation in Austria, but in the end, the customer is in Austria, so you need to pay the VAT to Austria. How am I doing it? Do I need to have a local VAT ID in Austria as well? So in the end, do I need to have a local VAT in every European country? It is not that way, fortunately, because there is a new OSS system, a one-stop shop, which was somehow was the biggest thing in VAT in e-commerce over the last 20 years. It was like, I don't know, it was presented like defining a new wheel or something. The authorities thought about that, but in the end, it comes different. But how is it working? It leads to wherever your customer sits, you need to pay VAT to, because it's just a fair thing in the end. And that you are not in need of having a VAT ID in every country you have a customer. You can have a main system. You sell all, you file all the VAT obligations to, and in the end to pay the VAT amount to, when you have a cross-border sale from a warehouse to Austria, from a warehouse to France, which is outside of the country you have your warehouse in. And therefore, you somehow have the possibility to have a combined party where you can send all the obligations to, which then somehow fulfills it to other countries. So
and you, I mean, you all those details, I guess, is part of your solution, right? So that the seller doesn't necessarily have to worry about the changing regulations and everything. I also want to listen to, maybe if we can go to the next slide. I think there's some case in point about Ruby, and I want to maybe ask Berin about her experience, and as the CFO of Turkey's upcoming next e-export champion, we had to do everything properly, and we were tasked with that. So Berin, what was your journey about when we started doing saying like we want to sell it, we have to sell in European Union? I know we talked to all like the big four companies about taxes and this and that, but how was your experience, and how did it end up with Context at the end?
Thank you, Emre. Actually, I would like to start with who we are as a Ruby brands. Actually, we consolidate leading e-commerce brands under one roof, providing them with necessary capital and know-how to transform them into global brands. Actually, right now we have 6 brands which are operating in Turkey, UK, US, Europe, European Union, and MENA region. Our main company is in UK, so we had a need for VAT registrations to operate in European Union. Exactly at this point, we met Context. As Daniel mentioned, they are providing VAT registration and filing services. It is in Turkey, it is very difficult to find right human resources because it's a subject that requires a lot of expertise. So we we have some discussions with big four companies and etc. But we couldn't find one source to discuss this issue in European Union. So we start to work Context. We have VAT registrations right now in Italy, Poland, France, Netherlands, and Germany. Context are making VAT filing on behalf of us. We are very safe in front of the tax authorities. Of course, I calculated how much it would cost if I had done this service with my own human resources. And I can say that getting services from Context is cost effective as well. Right, that's all I have to say for now. But if you have further questions, please let me know.
Sure. As we get questions from the audience, I'm sure they will be interested in your in your experience. So Daniel, I will let you continue then.
Maybe if I step in here for 1 second, sure. Because Emre, I think it came up earlier when you mentioned in how we are able to do what we do. Yeah. Daniel explained a lot of complexities, and it's the dry stuff, if I may say. Yeah. But we are tabbing marketplace data. Yeah. We are also tabbing ERP and invoice data. And having access to that data automatically already shows where the fulfillment happens and where the customers sit. And deriving from that, we understand where the obligations are, and we can populate data that then gets filed by our proper VAT advisors. And that's basically how we are trying to find a very simple solution for a very complex problem with automation. That's kind of keeping it in a nutshell, and that's why we can see clear through having a look at your data.
And Emilia, let me ask you this. I know some of my friends are watching. I even have my friends sending me messages saying this is a very, very useful. Sending messages to my wife as well. that they're watching me right now. So greetings to all my export friends who are watching, who may be thinking, am I big enough to worry about this? Maybe can I fly under the radar for a while before I actually become tax required and tax compliant? Like how when should sellers be? I mean, as Ruby, obviously from the get-go, we said we will be we have to do this because we are one of the biggest players in Turkey as far as e-exports. But there are thousands of small sellers, even selling on Etsy and all these small more smaller type of goods. Should they also be worried?
It's good that you asked.
And also how I mean, with that, is this how fast is the process for me to actually be properly get started in the EU? Right? What are, I mean, do you need a lot of documentation, this and that? I'm a seller who has just 2-3 people working. Is this another burden that I should be worried about, or should I just take the risk?
It's good that you asked. In the end, it's understandable because somehow you try to cover a risk. But the problem is that it is possible in the very beginning to fly under the radar. That you can use the Amazon fulfillment, that you do not pay VAT, and there's no impact which is negative on you. But this is not meaning that you have a problem, because the problem is that official tax authority again are moving slow, and when you are acting wrong, they do not recognize it from the very beginning. But when you're using Amazon FBA, for example, they have access to these kind of data. And after a month, maybe after a year, maybe after 2 years, there's a high potential that they are reviewing these kind of data, and then you get on the radar. And the problem is that you are not obliged to act from that point of time correct in the future, that the obligations you had from the very beginning you acted, you have to go back. And then there's a big gap of time, data increases, and time and the increasement of data is a high has a really, really high impact on the risk which is developing somehow underneath the ground. And we had every week we are talking about this kind of situation where they act the way they had no problems, and then the day came and the problem started, and to then retroactively go backwards and to act right, it's more money you need to take care of instead of doing it right from the very beginning. And the stress level you are having over the time, you cannot really compare to anything else, because in the end, the most powerful authorities you can imagine is a tax authority, and it can close down your whole business in the end.
If I haven't been doing it for the past 6 months, and I come to you and I say, okay, I'm now aware, are you able to look at my previous transactions and then properly catch me up? And what kind of data and documents do I need as a seller?
Maybe as a first step, I think, Emre, the case you're painting is a very normal one. Yeah. So with e-commerce growing cross-border, yeah, sellers start selling cross-border, and they often don't know about their obligations, and that they actually find that problem and they push it back. Yeah. So we have a lot of inbound clients who basically we think we have a problem from the past. Can you take a look? Yeah. And why we are onboarding these clients, we're trying to resolve the issues that they have in the past. But one thing that we basically want to flag here to authorities know that this is a problem. So when small merchants are growing, that over time they might grow into jurisdictions that they weren't aware of, where they have obligations, and that at the beginning they are not aware of that. But however, as I think Daniel pointed out, the legal regime for tax evasion is very strict and very clear. And we can't recommend anyone actually to start with it. So whenever you think that you have an obligation, feel free to contact us. And I think we mentioned that later too. For anyone who is coming via ETID, we're happy to basically provide an hour of free advice to take a look whether they have any obligation that they might think of, so that we can identify whether there is something that they actually should take care of.
Yeah. I mean, the good part about it is what Emilio already mentioned. It's somehow a usual case we are handling, and how it's been handled, how we can handle it, and how low the risk can be is massively impacted by the cooperation you show to the tax authorities. So when you know about obligations you had retroactively, and then you take a step towards the tax authorities, they will never ever cause problems above the problems you are already having. So in the end, of course, you owe money. You need to retroactively go to the past, change invoices, pay the VAT, claim VAT from different authorities back. Still, it's a process which is intense, but it is solvable. The problem gets bigger when a tax authority is coming to you without you saying anything beforehand. Then we have a different kind of, in the end, legal situation where it's going down to I don't know, in the end the risk of the company, or in the end there is prison possible. I don't want to paint it too black, but it's important that you are willing to cooperate, and then we can help you. And we there were a few, I think, not really situation we couldn't solve, but it's more stressful when you not start right from the very beginning.
So we're getting some questions about it. And one of the questions is, okay, I'm sold. Like, what do I need to do? Where do I start? What do I need to submit to you? I want to also mention what also say what Emilio said. For ETID referrals, you are offering 1 hour of free consultation to look at the situation, and we appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. I want to say that again to our audience. So feel free to reach out to contacts and say you heard it on ETID, and they will give you free consultation for an hour. But with that, what do I need to provide to you?
In the end, the data for the physical transactions, so the fulfillment data and the invoicing data, that we take care of knowing the physical transactions, checking if the data which provides in regards of the physical transactions are right, and then we can prepare the filing to the different jurisdictions. So for being able to start, we need to register VAT ID. Therefore, we need a few documents where we take care of the registration. So we take care of preparing everything, and then we send in the end the documents to you. You just need to sign, and then we provide it to the local tax authorities. So that's in the end the first
do
part.
I need to be incorporation in Turkey? Does it matter the type of corporation, or can I be an individual seller, a personal seller, or do I need to be a company?
You need to have in the end you need to have a VAT ID. It can be different types of incorporations. So in Germany it would be a GmbH, or different, just a single person also. You just need to somehow do a bookkeeping. You have a VAT ID, and then you can enable it as any online retailer.
Okay.
Once you are registered in this VAT IDs, we need, as Emilio mentioned, we need the data where we can track the physical transactions. So at the very beginning, when I started, I draw that somehow difficult picture of what you need to know, how physical transactions take place. We decrease this complexity to the very minimum by integrating the data you are having from fulfillment and invoicing programs, automated via an API into our system. And then in the end, we calculate all these kinds of transactions which take place, separate each country cross-border sales into different pods, and then file the VAT to the different tax authorities. And the only thing in the end you need to do is pay the VAT amount you owe to the countries you sell to. But we prepare everything for you as a single point of contract by integrating the data. Integrating from your fulfillment invoicing ERP system and so on. What we do in addition, because it is important, is we are checking the data in regards of in regards of validation. So we are integrating it and not just passing it on. We are integrating it, checking if the data is right prepared, that in the end, when local authorities have questions, we can rely on the data we provide to them. And if anything is wrong within this data, we go back to you and say, hey, please, you need to have a different automation that the data is validated and we can pass it on in the right kind of way. So in the end, we get a single source of truth as a data, which is validated by us. And everything you are doing within the European Union from VAT obligation side is right. And in the end, customers who approach us say in the end, I want to sleep well. And this is what we somehow can provide to you regarding these processes.
Maybe to add here, Emre Baron, is like you need to understand that we are not a tax advisor, but we are basically a software that allows you to automatically check on certain rules. Yeah, so certain rules are applied to the data sets that are coming in. So when we see data coming in from invoicing or from ERP systems and marketplaces, we can use the data and show you in what obligations you might have according to the rules that our software applies. And this is basically the core of software automation, where software can actually solve very tedious tasks that otherwise humans would be required to do, in particular when the data sets are so big. And once we basically have populated the data according to such rules, the data is provided to VAT advisors that basically then file on our client's behalf.
Great. I think we are reaching the end of our session. I want to ask, like, any final thoughts, because I mean we covered a lot of the questions that came through as well. This is this is a great slide. Thank you. Before we part, so 10% off on the services and a 1 hour free consultation. So any final words, Emilio and Daniel? I mean, it's you may talking about taxes interesting and fun for 1 hour. So that kudos.
So we're fascinated about automating and basically making frictionless cross-border commerce. Yeah, so we actually see a lot of value that sellers from Turkey sell into the EU, and we want to make that automated so that they have very little pain in doing so. This is at the core of what we do, and we would very much encourage every seller from Turkey to reach out to us so that we can support them and provide them access to the European market, because we think that with automated trade, there's a huge possibility for mutual benefit for all, for the seller and for the buyer.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, in the end, it is important to just talk about circumstances, but maybe a last sentence from my end is let the fear regarding VAT obligations block the growth of your selling. So we can decrease complexity to the very minimum, but always act compliant, and you can grow sustainable and like focus on the main part which is growing, and with us you can do it compliant.
Great. And Berin, you can sleep at night with a peace of mind, I guess. Yes, knowing all is taken care of. So do I. So guys, thank you for joining and sharing your services and your experience with the Turkish e-commerce community. We did this webinar live, but it will be also available recorded on our YouTube page and LinkedIn page. So many more merchants and sellers will be watching it over and over again, and we will definitely mention these services, that there is such a thing, in our other information sessions to our community, because it's very important that that, like you said, when we make our sales to the European Union, that we do this properly from a scalability perspective. There's no reason to be afraid. There's a solution to everything, and as long as there's automation to that solution, it makes things easier. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and thank you, Berin, as well, for sharing your experiences, and thank you, Emilio and Daniel, for sharing your experiences and your expertise in such a specific area. And to our watchers and everybody online, thank you for watching us, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Emre.
Thanks a lot, Emre. Thanks, Berin, Emilio.
Bye.